Welcome to this GCSE maths video on bearings. This topic just follows on from what you already know about measuring and drawing angles, and the tools you'll need for this are a protractor and a ruler. In the video I'm going to run through some of the typical questions you can expect to see on bearings on your GCSE maths paper. Here's our first question, and there's a couple of key points for you to make a note of here. We always measure bearings clockwise, and we measure them from a north line, which is a vertical line straight up and down the page, north line from the from point, and bearings are always written using 3 digits. So this should become clear as we move through answering this question. We've been asked to measure and write down the bearing of C from A. I've written from A in bold because that's where we draw a north line from A. It's usually drawn for you, but if it's not, you would have to draw that line. And we're measuring the bearing of C. And again, this line has been drawn for us, but if it hadn't been, you would have to draw a line to link points A and point C. To measure this angle, we just line our protractor up the way I've done here. The 0 line on the protractor is lined up against the north line from A, and then I measure using the scale of the protractor that starts from 0, which here is my outside scale, and counting round here, 50, 55, 56, that looks like about 57, 58 degrees. And to be within a degree is fine. So I'm going to call that 58 degrees. And because they're written using 3 digits, I'm going to have to call that 058 degrees. So that's what I'm going to write in as my answer. So I've now written in my answer to part A of the question, 058 degrees. Now I'm going to take a look at the second part of the question, which is asking me to write down and measure the bearing of B from A. Now B is over here, and the line linking A and B has already been drawn. Now to do this, I'm going to have to measure this reflex angle, and you'll typically only have a 180 degree protractor. So the method I'm going to use to measure this angle is I'm going to measure this acute angle, and I'm going to take that away from 360. If you think back to when we looked at angles at a point, this reflex angle plus this acute angle together add up to 360. Okay, I've put my protractor on, lined up with the 0 line against the north line. You'll see I've got my protractor the other way round, so this time it's going to be the inside scale that starts from 0, and this looks like 29 degrees to me. So I'm going to subtract 29 from 360, and that will leave me with 331 degrees as my answer. So that's what I'm going to write in. There's my answer to the second part of the question. I'm going to scroll down now, have a look at the third part of the question, and let's answer that. So there's a point D, which we're going to have to draw, that lies on a bearing of 096 degrees from A. I've been asked to draw a 5 centimeter line using this bearing and mark point D at the end of that line. So I'm going to need protractor and ruler for this third and final part of the question. I've placed my protractor on the paper, and I'm now going to measure 96 degrees outside scale of the protractor. 96 degrees is there. So now I'm going to measure a 5 centimeter line from A that lines up with this point. I've placed my ruler on point A, and this is the mark I made against the edge of my protractor to mark out 96 degrees. 5 centimeters is here, so I've marked that with a red dot. So I'm going to draw a line from A to the red dot, and the end of that line, that's where I'm going to say is point D. Here's this question finished off. A line joining points A and D. The line is 5 centimeters long, and this angle is 96 degrees. So that's all three parts of this question done. Let's take a look at another question. First part of this question, we're being asked to measure the bearing of A from B. That means having a north line from B. So I've underlined that here. It's going to mean measuring this reflex angle. So that's similar to the second part of the previous question. That reflex angle leaves us with an obtuse angle here. So I'm going to measure this obtuse angle, and I'm going to subtract that from 360. I'm measuring using the inside scale of my protractor, as that's what starts from 0. That looks to me like 121 degrees. I'm going to subtract that from 360, which leaves me with 239 degrees for the reflex angle, and that's what I'm going to write in as my answer. To do the second part of the question, I'm measuring an angle of 160 degrees. So I've turned my protractor round, outside scale, round to 160, and I've made a mark that lines up with 160 degrees. I've been given a scale here, 1 centimeter to 1 kilometer. So this 6 kilometers using the scale is going to be 6 centimeters on my exam paper. So next thing I'm going to do is put my ruler on point B, measure 6 centimeters in line with this mark, and then I'll make a second mark that is 6 centimeters from here along this bearing. So I'm going to take a different coloured pen here. I've lined up with my mark from earlier. My ruler is along this 160 degree line. 6 centimeters is here, so I'm going to make a mark at 6 centimeters, and this red dot, well, I'm going to turn that red dot into a cross, and that is going to be the position I've been asked to mark. Here's that question finished off. I've just turned the dot I made previously into a cross, so that red cross represents the point that is 6 centimeters from B and on a bearing of 160 degrees. One more question to look at now. Okay, have a read of this question. We've got a ship and we're being asked if it sails on a bearing of 132 degrees, will it avoid hitting land? So we're going to have to measure 132 degrees, which is going to be out in this direction, and see whether that hits the coast or whether it misses the coast. So I place my protractor on my exam paper, lining the center point up with the middle of my ship. Outside scale of the protractor, 132 degrees is round here. So let me try and make a mark here. Okay, I've made a mark there. It looks like it's going to hit the coastline, but let me finish this off and draw the line in. To finish the question off, I line my ruler up with this point, which I've previously measured as 132 degrees. I'm going to draw a line through that point, and as I can see, it strikes the coast. So on that bearing, the ship will not avoid hitting land, and that's what I've got to put in my answer. Here's my working out. So that concludes this video on bearings. Those 3 questions that we've been through here cover the typical questions you can expect to find on this topic. Thank you for watching.